Begin. All right. So tonight we're going to go over the next assignment, which is going to be focused on joints. We already experimented a little bit with your bottles and snapping the bottle cap onto the bottle. Some of you made rigid joints. Some of you made cylindrical joints, rotary joints, whatever. We're just experimenting with it. Tonight, what we're going to be doing and what the next project is to be is creating a utilitarian object specifically measured for either you're duplicating some found object like a pair of pliers, pair of scissors, something like that, or you are going to be making some sort of container that is going to have a fitted component to it, because it's kind of a 6 1/2. Doesn't really matter which one you're doing, but the accurate modeling part is going to be, and this doesn't have it in there yet, inside, instead of just an open container. Anyway, it's going to have a form-fitted insert. So that could be a separate component entirely that you drop in. It could be part of the model itself. Think of like a special toolbox, an actual case for a specific tool, that sort of thing. But what we're going to be doing is, if it's a lid, obviously, it will be able, you could just grab it and drag it if it has been appropriately modeled. Again, the bottom, and this is the last feature here, is I grounded the bottom of the box here. Or just like the pair of pliers, one of them, the lower half, is grounded. And when I grab the other handle, I can just grab anywhere, doesn't matter, grab, click, and hold, and slide, and it will move along the preset limits that I have already made for the joint there. The other part of this project is going to be, and I'll hide these two halves just to focus up, is I'm going to show you how to use the extension of inserting objects. So far, we played with canvases. You've brought in meshes like a phone model to model work, or just to basically work from. Brought in like DXF files from Illustrator, so to vectorize and then turn into a sketch that you can extrude. What we're going to be showing you is how to bring in hardware, screws, nuts, pins, whatever you're planning on using, directly from a website called McMaster-Carr. Now I'll just go ahead and open this up. And what this is they sell hardware. So if you're working with, U-bolts, I-bolts, threaded rod, screws, nuts, washers, whatever you need, it will automatically bring a pre-modeled component in, and it will bring it in just like that as a component that then you can use a joint and snap it in place, or you could just use the move and tumble and such options and drag and drop the object in place, the component in place. But I'll be showing you how to do that tonight. And just for measure, so why I hid those, unhide everything. So obviously that nut and bolt are way oversized for this pair of pliers. I modeled this pair of pliers off of an old pair of, needle nose pliers I have. But I'm going to show you how to work with that kind of stuff. So first, just to give a frame of reference, let's go over the actual project. If I could actually have that come up, that would be awesome. Damn it. Fine. All right. So let me change over my screen share to the actual screen itself. That way you can just see the whole to-do here. All right. So sharing the screen. The project, this is already on Blackboard, but the project is going to be hinged box. Now, just a reminder, we will not have class next or this coming Wednesday. It is Veterans Day, no classes. And remember, also, your papers are due on that Wednesday, but when I originally set the date, I forgot that it was it was Veterans Day on the November 11th. So remember, I set that to, you can have the extra day, but I'm not going to make you remember if you're off doing something. I'm not going to make you remember to get back to campus to submit your paper. So that's all. That's due for Thursday. But anyway, this is due for with us not meeting next week, the following week, and we're going to just move on from there. But the project is you are going to be measuring and accurately modeling as best you can a found object. So again, a pair of pliers, scissors, something like that. Or it can be a container that specifically holds an object. What that is, it's up to you. If that is holding a pair of pliers or scissors, or maybe you have, I don't know, I've had a computer science majors want to make enclosures for project boards like Raspberry Pi or Arduino cards, something like that. Or it could literally just be like a box that just holds, I don't know, whatever you got on your desk. That's fine. It's you're trying to just make something that specifically has measurements dedicated to it that relate to a real world object. And that real world object is a thing that is hinged already, like a pair of pliers, something utilitarian, cool. If it is you're making a container for that, that's the thing that gets hinged. So obviously it has to have at least two components because that's how the hinge or joint works. You will be incorporating hardware from McMaster-Carr, even if that is simply like a pin or a threaded rod with nuts on either end. I'll show you how to do that, of course. Oh, this was supposed to have been deleted. Modeled surface. That was not supposed to be on there. Oops. So I'll delete that and apparently update that on Blackboard. My bad. Again, pliers, scissors, tool case, lidded container for a specific item, whatever. We'll be doing this modeling in class, and the notes for this modeling project will also be available to you. But this, of course, focuses on using whatever measuring tools you're using. If you are using like a pair of digital calipers, hell, you could recreate the container and make a container for said digital calipers. Hey. So you're getting accurate measurements. Construction lines and mirroring and editing. Mirroring is especially going to be helpful for creating either paired sets of hinges for the actual container, or damn pop-ups, sorry. Or it's going to be for making opposite sides of like a pair of scissors, handles for pliers, that sort. Obviously multiple components, obviously joints, and again, importing those parts from McMaster-Carr, and of course playing about with your modeling design. So that is where that's going to be. All right, so let me go back to just sharing Fusion. So we have that, not snapping around. All righty, just change this over. Where the hell is the screen? There. Sorry, just trying to juggle the participant screen and my notes. Okay, so we're going to go through, what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to just go through the slider history for the container, and then I'm going to model, I'm going to model a pair of pliers, just to give you the examples. If we have time, we'll model both of them, just to give you some examples also, but just to show you how to do. All right, so sliding back in history, to skip ahead, what I ended up doing, let's see here, must have some things hidden here. All right. Where are my sketches? It's not showing properly. Weird. That's very strange. I don't know why it's not showing my sketches. There we are. All right, well, that's weird. All right. So what I started by to create a container is basically what we've been doing for most every project we've done so far. Yes. So start a new sketch. Yes, I could just make a soundboard for that and just keep hitting that. So what I did though is, like we've been doing a lot of modeling, is I like to split things at the origin plane, meaning that I was going to create my maximum value. So like just the largest sets for the hinged box, the lidded box here. And I just made a sketch that was, all right, well, this is, length and width. All right. And then I also created one that was going to be the internal length and width. So what I did for that is I made the outside and then just offset the inner set, meaning I created, I just clicked to highlight that. I just created the outline set. So height to width. Then I used an offset tool to create the internals. Now, when I zoom in here, you can see a couple of things. One, the construction lines that default from what when I added the fillets to round out the edges here. I also made construction lines because I often like to just make construction lines crisscrossing. But what those construction lines here referring to is because when I created this, I used a center point rectangle to create the edge. And then for the inner rectangle, I just used offset and it shrank down. So from there, I simply extruded, and I'll unhide this. From there, I selected both the outer lip and the internal space, and I extruded downward below the origin plane. And all I did, the reason it's rounded on the corners and tapered down is when I created it, and I'll right click and edit feature, I simply was just playing with the taper function on the toolbox, just because all right, that seems neat. I'll make a taper on the box so it's solid, or rather, so it's not just straight up and down. Then, like we've been doing with a lot, then I used that second internal sketch and extruded that downward, so it performed a cut feature. And what I did for this, rather than extruding straight down the full value of whatever I wanted it to be, what I did is I used an extent tool and offset that. What I mean by that is, so when I created this, I didn't just extrude downward a full 55, or the thing is 60 millimeters tall. I didn't extrude downward negative 55. What I did is in the toolbox, I went to the third one down, the extent selector. Normally it's to distance. I went to object, and what I could do then is I tumbled below and selected the bottom face of the box. And then what I did as an offset, I selected negative 5 millimeters. So what that does is that leaves a 5 millimeter gap between the bottom edge, or the bottom face rather, and the internal face. And the reason for that, and that was performed as a cut feature, the reason for that is now, if I wanted to say I was making this and like, oh crap, actually I need this to be 65 millimeters deep, and go back to the edit feature, change that to 65, and look back again, it maintains that 5 millimeter distance, because the internal depth, the extrude cut, the depth of that is dependent on how deep the overall extrusion is, the overall external extrusion is, so that you can make adjustments and it will be what's called parametric. It will follow along when you input one value, the rest follows along. That's not an exact description, but that's basically what parametric means. I'm sure you may have come across the word, if you're looking at other files, like playing with downloading files from Thingiverse, things like that. All right, so not sure where it is or is not hiding sketches from me again. What are you hiding? There we are. So from here, I started creating the lid. So what I did is I used project, which again, you can find that if you just hit the S as in September key. That brings up your shortcuts, and you can just start typing in project. And what you're going to be doing, and I didn't need to do this because the sketches were still there, but what that does is I can, like I did with the other one, or like with the previous project, I can borrow a sketch at a plane and bring that to another component. And the reason I did that was I just wanted to make sure that I duplicated that outer edge. And then I added to it. I made this little circular lip on that edge that I was going to extrude just to make kind of like a little thumb catch. So I initially, and for this one, because I wanted it to have a flat internal edge, or at least to begin with, I extruded that whole thing. Then I took, excluding this thumb recess here, so I selected everything else other than that and extruded up with a taper. So this automatically leaves this little thumb recess here at the top. It was just a neat feature. Added some sketches. What I then did is I used the internal and drew some sketches in here, extruded that inside. So now I have the same recess that I created to make the bottom, and I did the exact same thing. Looking at it from the side, it is still a recess. So again, I could make alterations to the depth of the, or rather the height of this lid, and it would alter automatically. So this is the part that I really want to show you on where the project tool really comes in helpful. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to create just like a basic hinge, you know, just like a door hinge, nothing fancy. That's something that's going to take just a circle of a, let me see here. Let me find the sketch where it went. Oh, there it is. So I wanted something that was just going to make like, you know, a circle on the surface, nothing fancy. And I wanted one side would have like this little wedge that connected to the bottom. Another side would have this little wedge that connects to the top, and basically make one wide one and two short ones. One connected to the bottom, the two to the top. Doesn't really matter how you do that. It could be just one. It could be like an even number or an odd number. It does not matter. It's totally up to you. But the thing is I didn't want it to just like draw this line willy-nilly. I wanted to make certain that I was only going to that very outer edge of both the lid and the base. And they're technically a similar line, but obviously they're different. And this is akin to what we ran into, what many of you ran into, and what I was modeling, showing you when we made the handle on the vessel for the loft object. Now, of course, it's more difficult to work with when you're working with like the pipe tool automatically generating a tube around a path. But what you were getting is that diameter was cutting into the body of your vessel. So what I wanted to absolutely make sure of that was not going to happen here. So what I did is I used the project tool. So again, shortcut, project, find the project tool. And what that does is that duplicates a profile as you're looking at it straight on. So I selected these outer edges, and of course, as I mouse over, it's showing the sketch already, so I don't need to do that. So let me hide these two objects, and you can see this purple line, and purple is what the default for project looks like. So now I had this line starts at the main work plane, main origin plane, tapers to the left and up for the lid, and tapers to the left and down for the base. So now I could make a line drawing on one side, and what I did is I just made a couple of construction lines up to one spot, and this isn't like specific to anything. I just said, all right, the grid is on millimeters. Each one of these is 1 millimeter. 3 millimeters sounds good up from this origin line, the green line. Made a construction line. I used that as my start point, and then just drew a line upward that seemed like a good value there. That's all. But what I did is then I duplicated that. The problem is when I tried to duplicate it, like, oh, right, the angle of this top line and the angle of this bottom line are different. Well, that kind of screws stuff up. So instead, what I had to do is just make these lines where it seemed about right. And what I did is I used the tangent tool. I'll open up the sketch here. So what I did is, in your constraints up above, I activated the tangent tool after I drew a line. So what I did is I started somewhere up here, drew a line down, clicked the tangent line, connected the two to the circle so that that line is straight off at a direct tangent from this circle here. Did the same for the bottom. Input at 45 degrees. I found where that line ended up. That's how I got there. So let me escape out of that or finish sketch. I didn't make any alterations. Now's the interesting part. Let me unhide the box and lid. So now, because I also created that sketch on the YZ plane, you can see highlighted here, it's the back wall plane. What I did is I first created one extrusion. And let me go in and edit this so you can see just what I did. And you can see right in the center what happened. So I selected, this is a concentric circle. I wanted to leave the center hollow. I selected the ring circle and that bottom wedge. And over in your selection box, start profile, yep, start at the profile plane right there. But direction, normally we've been working with one side direction. I selected symmetric. And distance is their extent. That's how far it's going to go again. And what happened with that is, and I'll show you with the slider, is it goes out equidistant on either side, like it's symmetrical, from either side, and creates, and you can look, and I'll tumble in, you can look straight down. So it creates a tube, and I'll go back. I want to make sure that's back to 30. Oh, I can just cancel it. So it snapped out to there. So now, and I made sure that that had a join command going. So now this hinge body is joined and part of the base. Then I performed another extrusion, and you have to, and this I had to do in 2 parts. That's okay. But let me show you, and you get the idea, and I just duplicated it. So edit feature. Now, what I did, same thing. I selected that outer ring, and then the top wedge. Make sure my operation is join. Now the thing is, what I wanted to do is, again, before the start was at the profile plane, and akin to using using an offset plane like we did for the loft project, and using the different offset planes to create sketches, so that way they're just always separated, and you could move the plane itself and everything that's on that plane carries with it. I went one further down from object. And what you do with that is then I was able to select the outer face of the first hinge as my starting plane. My reference sketch is that wedge and the ring, but it's not going to start actually extruding until outside of, or at the other side of the face of the bottom hinge. And then it just extended, or the distance, 20 millimeters is probably good. Join, and that creates a hinge made of and attached to, or joined to the top of the lid. And now I have a wedge hinge on that side. I did the exact same thing on the other side, just opposite. And that was a really simple way of creating a hinge. And I could demonstrate that later if you like. Then I created a just a joint, like I said, and I can grab that. Now, the problem is, you see, in my history slider, I'm too far back in history. When I grab and hold the lid, it's just moving the whole damn thing, and I don't want that. So revert, and I'm going to snap back to current history after I had pinned the base, after I grounded the base, and I also made like some fillets on the lid and that such. Now when I grab anywhere on the lid, because that bottom half is, because the base is grounded, now it just moves around properly. Very cool. Now, yes, this one has a threaded rod going through the center, and I'm going to show you all how to do that after this. That's not necessarily after these messages, but there we are. Okay. That is the basics. And again, that's really just obviously an overview of how something like that gets created. Sorry, give me one moment here. All right, thank you for your patience on that. So what I want to do is I'm going to show you next what I'm going to be modeling. So just as reference, if you were, say, to choose something like a recessed container, this is what I meant by a hinge box, but it would have a specific internal, so you would specifically be holding something inside. So that's where your measurements could end up. So I guess why not make a measurement specific to your measuring tool? Why not? But what I'm going to be modeling tonight is a pair of pliers. So we're just going to get a basic pair here. Now, I'm not going to be modeling the handles onto here. We're going to get an estimate for here. This is actually something, this would best be done with a form editing, and that's going to be the next, project after we get back from this. But what we are going to do is make a pair of these needle nose pliers. So what I'm going to end up doing is modeling one half of them, mirroring that sketch to create the other half, and then we're going to use some hardware to install into the hinge there. Now, this one is just pinned in place, so we're probably going to use some hardware that's akin to it to make it work. So let's get started with that. And go back to screen share the Fusion. All righty. So what I did with this project, like I said, this one worked really nicely because this is a much more simple pair of pliers. Convenient, isn't it? And again, the hardware for this is just way oversized, but that's okay for an example. So let's start up a new project. All right. So I have my pliers, have my measuring rule and pair of calipers so I can get some dimensions started. So like I told y'all before, it does help to just start the project with a couple components. So I'm going to start a new component, empty component, side one. Make sure to activate, again, either the full top or when you go to create a new component, make sure to uncheck the activate box. And then this is just going to be side two. All right, cool. So that's just where I can start. And what I can do with this now is the reason I'm also wanting to create these components separately from the get-go is I'm going to be basically sharing a sketch between the two. And while it's not like impossible nor really difficult, for me personally, when I'm doing something to that effect, I like to create the sketch on the main component and then create or then borrow those sketches onto the other components. That's not like a right way to do it versus a wrong way. That's just a way to do it, and that's one of the ways that I have found that I like to work. That's absolutely the only thing to that. All right, so with that in mind, main sketch here, and tell you what, why don't we just go ahead and save this right out. In class example, pliers walkthrough. And I know that's not how you spell walkthrough, but whatever. All right. I'm going to start a sketch, blah, 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 blah. Go to top view because it's irritating to not. So first I'm going to start with a set of just general references that I'm going to use as just that, references, and they're going to end up as basically just bounding boxes. So just a box of maximum values, and they're going to be and they're just going to be turned into construction lines. So first I want to start with an overall length. So it is, my pliers from tip to end are 150 millimeters. So I'm going to use a center rectangle, start smack in the middle, and tab over to that side, 150. And just so you know, I'm measuring them with the pliers closed. So the largest for the handle is at 55. Not 505, 54, just 55. Cool. All right, and that's it. That sketch. I'm going to double click on the outside, press X, turn that whole thing into a construction line. So that just gives me my general references. That's all. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to start laying out some major points. What I'm going to first select is I want to measure from the end of the tip of the needle nose to the center of the hinge on this. And that is conveniently, because these are import pliers, it's likely already made metric. So that is straight on 60 millimeters from the front. So what I can do, I'm going to show you a few things. All right. Say I wasn't really certain. Okay, I was measuring from, like, say, the center, but I measured from what will be the edge to where my pliers are going to be, or where the center is going to be. So what I can do, first I'm going to say, all right, and I'm going to use my calipers to find a more accurate point on this. So I want to know, well, how big is the hole that I'm going to make that? I'm going to say that is a 0.25 millimeter. Okay, cool. So I know that my center circle is going to be on this axis, but I'm not sure exactly where yet. So I'm just going to place that there, draw out, and it needs to be, oh, whoops, that is, sorry, the digital one was, I had it on inches. So 6 millimeters instead. So 6 millimeters, cool. Okay, well, the problem with that is, well, then how do I get this measurement over here? Well, easy way really is simply to start a line. When I mouse over this outer edge, it snaps by changing my cursor reticle to a horizontal X. And then when I get down to center, the little blue triangle appears as well. That is the constraint symbol for center point. Click there. And I know that out from here, it needs to be 60 millimeters. They okay? Now, select that line, press X, turn that into a constraint, or into a construction line. Now I can just take this circle, drag that, snap it to right there. Easy way to work. And now this construction line stays in place, and I have a dimension set in place where that needs to be. The other thing would be, well, if I draw a line first and then snap that circle to the line, then define the length of the line, it would have carried over just the same. That's one of the convenient things about working like this. Okay, so that is my center. That's going to be my center point. That's going to be where the lines really start to work out from. So since I'm working largely with, these are going to be my construction lines and everything, I'm going to go ahead and turn that into a construction line as well. And I'm going to finish this sketch because I want this to be my base reference. And that's just me saying that's how I want it to be. So now I start another sketch. Now I can use these references to build my new sketch on top of. It's not like you have to do this by any means. I just like to work with this way, especially when I'm going to start making something more complex. Okay, so I'm going to start with that center circle. I could have just made it the same, but whatever. 6 millimeters, cool. Okay, now I'm going to right click, pan up, because I want to repeat this, because now I need to create, well, what's going to be the outer edge? And I don't necessarily need that to be a circle. It might not end up being a circle later, but that might be a convenient way to work. So that is, well, technically it's 12.5. So sure, we're trying accuracy. Whoops. Helps if I start that. 12.5. Okay. And now I can start drawing things like lines. Problem is, it's like, all right, I need to draw a line out here. Well, that's kind of problematic. So what I can do then is I'm going to start by drawing a line out here. And let's see here. Let me measure this out. That is about, oh, it's 20. Okay, cool. 20 millimeters. Well, that's convenient. It was damn near there. Okay. Now I'm going to start using some of the constraints to work this. So your first thought might be, well, I make a tangent. I select there, select there. Well, that does actually snap it in place. There you go. Correct, brain. But I need that to slide over a bit. So I can still grab that, slide the line around, but it is sitting at the very top of that circle. Great. So where does that really break down? From the front, from the center of the circle to the front, yeah, that's about 12. All right. So again, I can now create a line right there, 12 millimeter. I'm going to select, poopy. This sometimes gets difficult. What you can do, and you should be able to just mouse over. Damn it. It's not doing it. There it is. Yeah. I just want this front line, turn that into a construction line, and I'm not entirely sure, but that ended up snapping to exactly where it needed to be. Neat. All right. Now I can take this line, and I want to mirror that to the bottom here. Select the mirror tool. That line is already selected. What is my mirror line? Ordinarily, you'd say, oh, well, I should be able to just select the axis line, like I can do like when you're assigning like revolves or things like that. This won't let you do that. However, because I already created that first set of sketches and there's construction lines left over, I can still select, because it as I've told you before, one of the things about Fusion, if you want something to not be interactable, hide it. Or rather, if it is visible, you can interact with a thing, even if it's on a different sketch, if it's on a different component, whatever. So I can grab that line. Now I have mirrored this line down to here. Great. Yes, it's a very simple thing, but those are the kind of parts that I need to start creating these mirrored sides. And the good thing is since this is mirrored, if I were to adjust this top line, that bottom line will be adjusted as well. All right. So the way that this is made, this pair of pliers here, there's more of a rounded front to this. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use an ellipse tool. 2 points to there. Oops. Excuse me. I used the wrong ellipse tool. It's supposed to be in the center there. Now watch what happens. Let me zoom in. What I did first is I thought I was selecting the two ends first. I mixed it up. I got it confused with like a 2-point circle. But what that means is what you're supposed to do is select the center first, then an outlier, then the other outlier. Well, I want it to be on the same line as the end of this. So I'm going to mouse over the top here, mouse over the end of that line, that vertex. It goes, a cursor selects a blue square around it. That means it is squared at the end. It's an endpoint. But now if I move my cursor straight down that line, a blue construction line appears behind that. That lets me know that is still, my cursor is still in line with the end of that. So I come down to the construction line, which is also on the axis. Damn. Select that center. Now I've got what I need. So now I can snap back out to the top. That's on both of those. And snap out to there. And let me see. I'm going to try to get a estimate here because it's really hard because it's not a perfect grind on there. So it looks like it's about 4.5. That looks good. Cool. So I can go ahead and automatically, I know I'm not going to need those sides. Good. Oops. Why did it select? Why did it get rid of both of those? Well, that's dumb. Strange. I don't know why it is selecting that. It's on the point. Don't know. It's weird. Maybe there's a little, maybe it's not fully connecting like I think it is. Well, I guess I'll have to come back to that later. Okay, whatever. All right. So from here, what I'm going to end up drawing is this is going to be from this circle, the outer concentric circle, that is going to be my center line for the pair of pliers. So I'm going to draw a line from the end right up to that point where it intersects with that circle. Sometimes you have to zoom way in because it starts getting confused on what you're trying to select. Select to there. Great. Did it do it? Did it not do it? Let me hide my base sketches. Yeah, there's a line there. Okay, I couldn't see it. All right. Now I'm just going to measure the end of the needle nose. It's about 3 millimeters. Great. So up from the center there, 1.5 because I'm splitting it in half. I want my line to be that long. Where'd the... There. 1.5 in length. Nope, not 1.5 in length. There we are. And up. Good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a spline curve to create the connection between there. And then these will start making sense. So what I can do is, all right, I know that I need this to connect straight up to here. It's going to make it to the end there. But if I just select right to there, it's going to be a straight line. I can always come in and add points to adjust to that. So I'm going to select there. But I don't want that to be a straight line. Now, I could play with the handlebars. That would actually get me a little closer to what I actually want, but not really. See, I can play around with the handlebars, but that kind of screws up everything. So I'm going to just Control-Z both of those. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Create and Point. Creates a sketch point. Or on a spline, not so much. Not so much. I want to add a point. So onto this line, select there, and let's throw one right there. Great. Now, what's going on here? Oh, those are just points. My bad. I don't want those. I need a actual insert a point. Where are they? Where's the add point? Okay. Well, that's awesome. I don't see the... All right, fine. Fine, be that way. Oh, where did my... Good Lord. There. Just want to delete that. All right, fine. I'll have to add points later. I don't know where they moved it. It should be right there. Mildly irritating how often that ends up happening. So with this part, I'm just going to do my best estimate to get my lines to where I want them to be. Now, this obviously is screwing up the works right there. What I mean by that is look at where this handle went. What I can do is now I can adjust the handles and invert that and bring it the other way. So that's where your handle points come in, or your handleball points come in, and you can play around with that. Same thing at the end here. I don't know why it snapped all the way around to there. So I'm just going to flip that handlebar point, move it around to there. Now I got that plier. Yeah, that's about right. Now, when you're creating this, don't forget, when you're creating a pair of pliers, and let me bring up the other pair as well, or I'll bring up the other one. Let me first save this one and double check. Don't forget, your handle is on the opposite side of the tine of the face of the plier, or vice versa. So it crisscrosses. Don't forget that. So effectively, if I made this handle, or rather this beak here, whatever, one of the needle nose pieces, so my handle needs to be down on this side. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my center points going. Again, I'm going to create a line right in the center, pan over, right in the center, good. But that I want as a construction line, so press X. Now I have a construction line for that one, but now I have a reference line. So when I measure the internal distance between the two handles, that is 28 millimeters. Slick. So I can start another line, start right at that center, and bring that down half of 28, which is 14. Great. Select that one, construction line. Now I have my point references to start making my handle. All right, so fit point spline, starting at the center here, and I'm just going to start kind of doing my best to measure to there. Somewhere out about there. It does get wider, and then it comes back in. Great. Don't worry about those sketches now, or that all of that area. It automatically starts trying to create things. So now the other side is I'm going to start at, let's see here. Oh, right. I need to make the other side of that handle. That also is an ellipse. All right. So it needs to be out to the end of that element. Select my center, select my point, come out, and that is much smaller. That's like 2 millimeters. Cool. That just creates the other end of my handle. You know what? I don't think that should be 2. Let's adjust that. We'll make that 4. That's a little better. Okay. And I'm going to go back, trim those segments out. Zoom in. Don't forget to make sure you get all of the parts that you don't need. Great. Okay. And I'll end up trimming some other sections out here also. Like that. That fit point spline is to there. There we are. All right. Now I'm going to make the other side of that handle. Now, I don't want it actually all the way over, but it's pretty close, so I can always adjust it afterwards. So bring it to there. Now, this does get a little difficult to see what you're doing. So certainly understand if you want to like hide the previous sketch, something like that. So again, all I'm doing is making my handle pretty close to where it's measuring to. Now, what I mean by that is, well, for one, I made this first sketch, this first construction plane sketch, or sorry, construction line sketch, because I know that the handle does go out that far. So I'm going to grab one of the vertices and drag that out so that it snaps in place to there. Now it goes out. When I zoom in, it goes too far. So I'm going to grab the handlebar and just tweak that a little bit. There we are. So now we're getting a lot closer to what I want. I don't want to directly connect these. What I want to do is I'll just use a line and draw between them. There we are. Now I'm getting a lot more of to what I want out of this. Now, looking at my pliers, the center of the handle does not go right to the center of the piece, so that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and hide that first one. Problem is see, this is automatically projecting a line because it thinks I'm interacting with that. That gets real problematic. So I'm just going to delete that line to get rid of it. And all it did is it automatically projected a line. Remember projected lines are purple. Gets real confusing. I do not want that at all. But now I've pretty much got my half of a pair of pliers. I'm going to finish this sketch. Again, I don't know why it does that. Delete that. So now you see I have a handle, the needle nose part, and now I have to work around how am I getting these halves out. All right, so now comes the trim fun again. So what I should have done is worked that a bit more. So let me go back and re-edit this sketch a bit more. Now I need to trim some stuff out because what I want is just half. I just want the one half. So I'm going to delete that section, that section. That is full. And looking at my pair of pliers, this part gets a little tricky sometimes. So I'm going to leave that in place for right now, this whole backside, and I'm going to work with that. Yes, warning, constraints and dimensions were removed. That is A-okay. Cool. Okay. Handle's a bit wide, but that's because I'm estimating around this formed plastic grip handle rather than just a bare metal handle. So does anyone have questions so far? What I'm making is half of the pliers. I'm going to extrude them in 2 different directions. I'm going to mirror that and create the other half as well. Does that make sense to people? Or rather, does anyone have any questions about that so far?
Sounds good so far.
All right. I'm going to say either sounds good or completely confused until you finish up. Either way, that's reasonable. All right. So just tumbling around, I've now made half of what I need. So now I'm going to just extrude to begin. Now this is the part that gets a little confusing. I'm going to go back to the pliers that I made before and show you why I say that. Let me hide the 2 parts. What I mean is, now this is by no means the complete way of working with this. But what I did, just as a simplified version, is 1/2 gets extruded, and I will go back in the history slider to show you what I mean. So I have the whole one side, but remember that a pair of pliers overlaps so that you get the full set, unlike scissors. So what I did is, to create this, I created 2 extrusions. The first extrusion makes an entire half of the handle. The second extrusion is only on the plier head itself, so you duplicate that side only going forward. That also creates the recess for the hinge and all that such. So when I go back to my in-class model, I'm going to extrude, press E. Now as I want to start selecting the parts out. I want that one, I want that one, I want that ring, I want the backside, and the handle. Thickness overall would be, the thing is 6.5 millimeters thick. However, half of that handle is not. It's only 3 millimeters thick. So I'm going to start, whoops. I accidentally hit 3 and enter at the same time. That's all. Just to make sure I did that correctly. Yeah, 3 millimeters, it extrudes up. Great. Okay. Now, and of course I have to unhide the sketching because it does that. Damn it. Now I'm going to perform another extrude, but I'm only going to select the face there. So now I'm going to select -3 because I want it to come downward. Now I've created part of the handle head here. This is what I mean by it. Cool. Now, ultimately, what I'm also going to be doing is modifying the handle downward as well. But just for now, I'm going to show you this part. And yes, of course, what I can effectively also do is to round out like the head here, a couple of fillets. That gets affected onto both of that. We'll say something that's going to conflict. Excuse me, something is conflicting. So, geometry is messed up. Okay, well, I guess I'll have to mess with that later. All right, whatever. Cancel out. I'll deal with that later. Okay. So this is the part that I was talking about. Well, this, what I should have done before I extruded was activate another component and be working on that. So that's okay. I can always just delete this, or I could select the body, right click, like I was explaining earlier, create component from bodies. That just made a new component. So now I'll just rename that as, well, actually first let me delete side 1. Now that will be side 1. Cool. Now the only problem with doing it this way is it doesn't automatically carry the sketches over. But like I said, I'm not really worried about that because what I'm actually going to be doing is using the same sketch to duplicate over. But I'll show you how I can copy that sketch over in a minute. Or actually now, not in a minute. So that's over here. That's my main one now. If I hide that, it's gone, but my sketches remain because the sketches are part of the main component body here, or the component area rather. So now I'm going to activate side 2. I'm going to start a sketch, and I'm just going to select that bottom plane just so it's begun. And then I'm just going to finish the sketch. I just want to register that there's a sketch there. Why I'm doing that is I'm going to go back up, activate and edit that sketch from the original. I'm going to do a box selection, select that whole thing. Now I can Control or Command C, depending on if you're Mac or PC, or I could right click. Yep, making sure. Yep, repeated copy. We're good there. Cool. Finish sketch. Now I'm going to go back to my side 2 set of sketches. I'm going to go ahead and edit that one again. So now that is active. I can hide this original set of sketches. I'm currently active in this sketch plane. Control V. The trick to copying sketches and such from one component to another is you have to have a sketch plane already existing to drop it into. So I didn't necessarily have to create this empty sketch before. I could have just created a sketch and then dropped it in, but just so it's there, I wanted to show you. However, what I need is I don't need this. Now, move copy, that's great. I need a copy. We're there. Great. But what I need is a mirrored image of this. So I'm going to select this whole thing, select mirror, my mirror line. Because I have these construction lines, this works great already there. Why isn't it mirroring? Come on, you jerk. Oh, because that line doesn't go all the way through. Fine, I'll make a new line. So I'm just going to draw a line all the way through. That's fine. Make that one also a construction line so it doesn't interfere with anything. Of course, now, remember when you select from the left, it only selects what the box entirely encompasses. If I selected that from the right, it would have also selected that construction line. So I selected all those. Mirror, we're good. Mirror line. There we go. Okay. So that's what I wanted. However, I don't want all of this stuff on here now. Uh-oh. Hopefully I didn't just crash my computer. Okay, good. What just happened with all of that? I don't know. It just went completely nanners for a second there. Interesting. Goody gumdrops, because I kind of needed that to stay selected. Crap. All right, well, I guess I'll just be selecting stuff to delete now. Damn. Well, that's always problematic when things like that happen. All right. Well, select there. No, I need that whole line deleted. Grand. All right. I don't know what all these symmetries are right now, so maybe if I delete that. All right. That was some kind of a computing error against that construction line. Okay, cool. So now you see when I unhide that first section, now you see why I had to mirror that. Now I have the opposite. So I can unhide that, but sometimes that does in fact get in the way. So we'll have to be wary of that, but we'll deal with it in a minute. If anything, just remember that now what we're going to be doing, and if it helps, make sure you finish that sketch just to get that out of there. Let's see here. Let me activate the whole thing here so I can see a little more clearly. You can see where I'm working here. All right. Anything, what I want is that side and that side. You see like I did before. I want to extrude that. I'm just doing this in reverse this time, meaning this one I'm extruding upward, not joining. Why would that join? It should be a new body. Okay. Good. Yeah. All right. Keeps hiding the sketches. Now I can select, come underneath, select the handle, the there. Oops. I should have hit extrude first. Select there, that outer ring underneath the handle or underneath the pliers. And I want -3 because I'm going the opposite direction for now. There we are. And there we go. That is the beginnings of my handle. Now, obviously, I need to also extrude this surface, either surface handle or handle surface rather, thicker as well so that it matches the overall thickness of the pliers. But that is the beginnings of what we need. So I'm going to go ahead and save there. Cool. So this is now what is going to be my base point for my both the joint and bringing in hardware. So first, I'm going to show you the joint. Let me collapse all these just so clean the scene up here a little bit. Although I am going to hide the sketches on there. There we are. Cool. Now, just fair warning, when I may expand the two components here, when I duplicated or when I created side one by taking the bodies from that first set and converting them over, that really messed stuff up because I don't have the sketches over here. That's not really a big deal, but just if you go looking for them, just know that that's where they are. And also, for some reason, those are there? That's weird. All right, I don't know why it dropped. Oh, because that was activated, but yet it's... Okay, I got something real weird going here. All right, first I'm going to solve this. Okay, so I'm going to reactivate the main part, but the problem is what's showing, and I just went ahead and hid the other side. But what happened is because I forgot to reactivate just the side I was working on, although it is showing by color that these bodies are on the same component, and I don't know why it is showing. Wait, where the hell is going on here? Oh, yeah, that's why, because it activated these all on. Wow, I really messed that up. My side two got all screwy. My sketches are there where they're supposed to be, but I accidentally created the bodies onto here. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to move these onto that component. So I can't just drag them over or anything, but what I can do is I'm just going to go ahead and delete these off just because that is going to be utterly confusing because it should be by default view, that should be red, but instead it's the default of the overall component is this turquoise. So that is just all kinds of screwy. Let's see. Or where is the move to? No, I don't want to create a new group. Well, that's just intentionally confusing. Yeah, move would be the thing, but I wanted to move it to a different group, and I can't just drop it. There we go. That's what I need. Alrighty, you can. Sometimes I've had it happen before where you can't just drag and drop stuff individually, but I was able to. Awesome. So I took the bodies from the overall component and dragged them. The key was because there were no bodies on the side two, I dragged it and moused over the actual component listing of side two, dropped it, and it dropped it down in. Now these shouldn't be two separate bodies, but that's an easy thing to fix. Let me just hide the sketch, select both those, go up to combine, join, done. That is now one dealie. Great. Same thing showing now the sides. Now it's cleared up. Okay. Well, that was just, again, friggin' confusing. All right, so now I want to make a joint in the center there. So go up to Assemble, Joint. If you use the drop-down, there's an option for As Built. We do not want As Built. That is much more of for downloaded or imported components or pre-built models. For what we're doing here, I want to assign my own set of joints here. So I'm going to select that, or you can just press J. I can use the drop down that's floating, or I can go over to motion. This is going to be a revolute component. Now, the trick is I want the actual center of my rotation not up at the top, but down inside. And you see when I mouse over into here, it's real hard to, if I just slight movements, it's just going all over the damn place. So what I can do is, like I showed you before, or showed you last week, if I wanted that joint out here, I would mouse over this plane, press and hold Control, and then mouse over to the circle, because that locks the selection to the active plane or the shared plane of where the mouse was floating. But what I actually want is down in there, and that is just friggin' confusing. Now, when it's floating, I can press and hold Control, but I'm not really sure if that's what I want. So what I can do instead is just hide one of the damn things. So now if I mouse over internally, press and hold Control, right there. That's what I want. Except, don't forget, the first one you select will snap the second one in place. That's not a problem right now because they're already in place, but just know that that is a thing. So now, though, to get my second selection, I need the other component visible. So I'll swap over, although now that component is totally visible there, but mouse over the bottom plane, press and hold Control, right smack in the middle. Unhide, and now it's showing it going completely nanners, but it is going where I want it to be. Now I can set the stuff earlier, or rather the degrees and such. I'll just put a 90 degree for now. That's if you want the alignment there. I don't, so keep it at 0, and I'll mess with the actual settings of that in a minute. So the joint is created. Okay. A new hierarchy option comes up. That's my revolve joint. I open this, animate it. Okay, well now it's completely circling. How do I create constraints? Open up the minimum, and it automatically creates maximum. Minimum, 0. Yeah, that's fine. If I select the maximum, it shows the highlight. It highlights one of these little flags in the center. It might be easier if I mouse and toggle up. There we go. You see these little flags? I mouse over, and my cursor changes to the hand. Now I can grab that, and I can do this manually and just drag it out. And yeah, a pair of pliers, yeah, it should open about there. Now, obviously, we're going to run into some problems here. For one, if this were something I was actually trying to model properly, which we are, this creates a problem. But also I look at my model. Oh, this doesn't open nearly as far as I've modeled it. So I'll just close this up a bit to where it matches to there. I'm still going to have to modify this sketch a bit. All right, so we'll say about 50 degrees. Okay. Now, go back to the home view. Snaps all over the place. Super duper. Now, like I said, though, what you want to do is ground your bottommost one. So I'm going to select here. That shows me side 2. Great. Actually select the component. I don't have to activate it. Just select the component. Right-click. And I hit ground. That now locks that bottom one in place. So now if I grab the other handle, it opens up, but only to 50 degrees. Cool. So now this is where the issue comes in, where I need to make some modifications. I'm not going to mess with that right now during the example. It's already almost 8 o'clock. I want to show you how to bring in components. What I'm going to need to do at some point is, and it's easy to do if you open up the jaws to where you need it to be. Well, what I need is I just need a tangent line coming off of that circle to about right there. And I just need to trim up the that extrude. So that would be moving the slider hit back in history before the first extrude. After I make that line, might be a little bit of screwing around with history slider there. Figure it out. But anyhow, I'll tweak that in a bit. What I want to show you first, excuse me, is bringing in components. Now, before I do that, I want to double check. Now, how big is that line? Or how big is that circle? Inspect, measure. Just select that circle. It shows me the radius, 3 millimeters, or the diameter, 6 millimeters. What that means is, since we're working metric, it's easy. I will find a screw that is an M6 diameter, and then I know that I need to make it at least, again, I'll measure from the there to the there. Why is that damn thing? Sometimes the inspect really goes a little haywire here on me. Point to point, 6 millimeters. So it needs to be 6 millimeters plus, meaning plus how large the nut that I'm using. Or I'm going to use something else. That's all right. All right. So did you get to McMaster-Carr extension? Insert McMaster-Carr. And this is basically just a web browser, or this is a web browser. So because it's built inside of Fusion, it might be easier to find what you're actually looking for just opening up a web browser and finding it first. That way you can just type in the number that you need for the actual item and go from there. But I have a pretty good idea what I want. I'm going to go to screws and bolts. I want a rounded head screw. We'll make a slotted round head screw because those are fancier looking. My measurement system is metric, so I know I need an M6 screw. Now I'm going to figure out what they got. The wide head might be a little bit overkill, so standard head, sure. I know it needs to be at least longer than 6 millimeters, so 10 millimeter screw, sure. All right, it found what I needed. And if you were to be ordering this, yeah, this is pretty standard. Most of the time you're ordering stuff in quantities of like 25, 50, 100, but it's only like 12 bucks. I just ordered some rivets, some little tiny rivets. Yeah, I could only order like 50 of them, but it was only like $8. So that's what it came down to. But irrelevant information. What you're looking for is right here where it says product detail. Select that. This is where it brings up the information, but it also has a layout, or kind of like a blueprint, a layout sketch. You keep scrolling down. This is just a detailed view, and you see here's your information. But down here, you can download pre-made image or pre-made components or pre-made things to input. Now, I have found the one that works best for Fusion is this step file. Save. Super good. That's now in my downloads. But what it does also is it automatically drops it into your project. It does it as a new component. There we go. So obviously this screw is way too big. So I'd have to tweak it and find something else that works better. But that's how you get it in. It's a new component. Now you can drag and drop this in place if you want. You can drag and drop it somewhere else. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It's up to you. I'm going to capture the position where it is right now. I can do this afterwards too, but there's a little checkbox at the bottom of the toolbox. Select OK. Now that is in as a workable component. To put it in place, I'm going to use another joint. Select joint. Now remember, the first joint is the thing that moves. The second joint is where it's moving to. So to get to where I want this to be, I'm going to mouse over a screw. Now this is going to get a little tricky. So I'm going to zoom in. What I actually want, and I'm going to create this I'm going to make the joint snap to the outer surface here. It gets a little tricky to do that, but you can play around with this a little bit. Now I'm selecting, I'm kind of going up and down the threads, gets all kinds of nanners. But if I tumble more of inside, I'm going to try to select there. Nope, that's not letting me do it. So let me tumble downward, trying to get inside of that ring. That's what I mean by this gets a little funky. Let's see here. I don't want it between two faces or an intersection. All right, I might just have to kind of fudge this a little bit. There we go. So if I go to the underside of the screw, I want it on this surface, but inside that set of the threads. Mouse over the surface here, press and hold Control. Now I can snap right to the center there. Boop. Cool. It's exactly what I wanted. I tumble back up, go up to the top here, mouse over the surface, Control, snap to there, beep, drops it in place automatically. Friggin' cool. Now that's in place. I've got a screw placed in there that doesn't really interfere with anything else. I can still grab the handle, move it, but that is in fact linked to the surface of this handle. So keep that in mind. For what we're doing, not really a big deal, but that works. Great. I want to throw a nut in there too. So let me select here, McMaster-Carr again, nuts, nuts. Metric, M6, why not stainless? Because reasons. I do want you can scroll down here and see all your options. So all kinds of fun options. Welded, tamper, you put whatever you please, obviously. We'll do a hex nut, and I want to try and find something that's thin. Doesn't really matter. Tell you what, we'll just throw it in there for now, and we'll deal with it later. Stainless steel. Select the tool, product detail, scroll down, and it will have saved your selection choice. Supposed to. If it doesn't, remember, you're going for a STEP, S-T-E-P file. Save. It will download to your downloads or whatever your folder is, but we're also having it now in here. I'm going to throw this out here, capture position, just because I want it to be right where it is. Now I'll create another joint. It has now created another component automatically. Joint, first object, one that moves. Mouse over. I'm going to mount this. Tell you what, we'll see how this goes. This might screw everything up. We'll see. I want to mate this surface, so the bottom. Press and hold Control. There we are. I want to mate that to the bottom of the screw here. Press and hold. And it even tumbles the thing in place. And all right, that's not quite where I wanted. So what I can do is I flip that. Now it just flipped it to the other. Now it just turned it over. So It's not exactly what I want because it's obviously way too thick. I should measure, like I said, I should find a nut that's closer to the actual measurement. But for now, you get the idea. Okay, so that is the start. I'm going to save that. Now, what I was talking about of extruding the handles upwards, all I meant for that was, yes, thank you. Go away. Sorry, pop-ups. All I meant for that is like an extrude that surface and come up like 3 millimeters. But obviously that creates problems because that's now going to interfere with the handle and such. So I need to make some adjustments first. But that's what I mean by that. So I'll cancel that and I'll tweak that model later. So that's pretty much what you're going for. Now, obviously, this screw and nut are not at all what is on this pair of pliers. So I need to find something on the catalog that is much more fitting. There are flush mount screws and all that kind of thing. What I could have also done is, let me hide these. I could have put like a chamfer on here. Like a 1 millimeter chamfer. And then I could have put a countersunk screw into there. That would have made it a lot more sense. Excuse me. But that's more of what we're going for. So yeah, your project is you can either model a pair of pliers or scissors or something like that, something that has a hinge and basic tool, or you could go about with some sort of container. Now, I told you this. I downloaded a threaded rod and a couple of acorn nuts. What an acorn nut is it's a nut that, looks like it has an acorn on top. Yeah, very clever in a name. But some sort of container that ideally has a fitted surface inside, or you're just duplicating a container in general. That's all right. So that's pretty much what you're going for. Obviously, I'm available for meetings and such. We will not meet next week because it's Veterans Day, and it will be due the day after that. But I will be available for meetings and such probably any time between then. So just let me know if that's an option, and we will go from there. So I'll stop the recording there. And thank you very much, and good luck with your project.